and yet he refuses to come before the Congress as the Constitution demands and make his case for war. And after yesterday's briefing, I think I know why. Aside from his own ego and hubris, his authoritarian tendencies, Donald Trump has refused to come before the Congress and make his case because he has none. It is exceedingly difficult to explain your rationale when it is not clear in your own head, when it changes every day. Is it regime change? Well, they have no idea who will follow. And as my colleague from Connecticut laid out, history suggests that we may well end up with somebody worse. We've seen the perils of regime change. And then we heard another explanation. Is it to disarm Iran of its nuclear capabilities? I thought the president said he had obliterated that a few months ago. Now he says the regime was an imminent nuclear threat. Which is it? The American people deserve to know. And the families of those 6 service members who've already died deserve to know. Is it to destroy their ballistic missile capability? Well, what changed in their capabilities that demanded this action right now as we are 4 days into this conflict and already this war is spreading? The American people deserve better than this. No rationale, no explanation, no strategy, no exit plan. We must stop this madness because the American people have made it clear that they want us focused on their health care, their everyday costs, their children, their families. Are they concerned about their safety? Yes. But while Khomeini was clearly a brutal dictator, and there are many of them around the world, whether we are actually safer today than we were last week, given the increased instability that we are witnessing in the region in real time, is an open question. And still getting this body to have a real debate on something so grave, so deeply consequential, is almost impossible. But we must demand that it happen. Donald Trump has attacked 7 countries in the first year of his presidency, more than any president in the modern era. He is out of control. We must put guardrails on this president. Otherwise, who can and who will? My colleagues, our service members are living up to their oath. Let's live up to ours. Let's put guardrails on this president, stop this madness, and get focused on the American people. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The senator from Washington State is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. President Trump promised to deliver Americans lower prices and no new wars. When it comes to broken promises, it does not get more blatant than that. First, prices are soaring. Republicans let health care premiums double. They slashed Medicaid and food stamps. And Republicans allowed Trump to hit families with the largest tax increase in American history, his tariffs, that are squeezing family budgets and shutting down businesses. But not content to only break his promise of lower prices, President Trump is also breaking his promise of no new wars. Trump is charging ahead with new conflicts without approval from Congress, without any long-term strategy, and without any concern about who will be paying for the consequences of his action in Venezuela and now in Iran. Trump, who is a billionaire, knows he is not going to pay for the war. He knows his family is not going to be on the front lines. Instead, everyday Americans are going to pay the cost of Trump's war with higher prices and worse inflation, fueled by oil prices that are already rising. American families are going to pay for Trump's war in lost opportunities as billions upon billions of dollars that could have gone to build affordable housing or making childcare accessible or lowering your health care premium are now squandered on more missiles set to be launched by a trigger-happy billionaire with no concept of the repercussions. I mean, seriously, this president is ordering our kids to be shipped off into war from his beach club in Florida. That is obscene. And tragically, American families are already paying the cost of Trump's war as the lives of our brave American service members, our sons and daughters, are lost. My heart goes out to the families who've already lost a loved one in Trump's war. And my thoughts are with the rest of our service members on the front lines and their family members back home, all of whom are watching the news and anxiously waiting to hear what happens next. You deserve a clear strategy from any president before he puts you in harm's way, not a president who shrugs his shoulders about how long this will go, not a president who doesn't know and doesn't care if he will put American boots on the ground, and not a Congress led by Republicans that refuse to do their job and hold the president accountable to the people before our citizens are put in danger. You know how I can tell President Trump has no strategy? Well, I've been listening to him because I've been scouring every statement from this administration in public remarks and private briefings for any inkling of a cohesive strategy, a real plan, even a spark of critical thinking about what happens next. No one here mourns the Supreme Leader, but no one in this administration has a clear answer about what happens next. I strongly support the millions of Iranians who've been protesting and speaking out for freedom and democracy. But you don't bring democracy to the Middle East with bombs. Haven't we learned that by now? There is no guarantee that what comes next means a safer world for all of us or a democracy for the Iranian people. War should always be a last resort. But of course, the same people who came up with a name like Operation Epic Fury can't seem to think of a plan more nuanced than blow things up, pat themselves on the back, regardless of the fallout. Maybe that's why Trump refused to make an address to the American people, laying out his rationale before this strike. Maybe that's why he refused to ask Congress to back his plan before he sent missiles flying, because he didn't have a plan. That honestly becomes more clear every time a member of this administration opens their mouth. After all, Trump and his officials are contradicting themselves one moment to the next, sometimes in the same breath. But the truth is obvious. Trump cannot pretend to have a strategy for this war when he can't even say why he started it. First, he says, we destroyed Iran's nuclear capability. Then he says, just kidding, we have to bomb again. One minute, the administration claims Iran planned an imminent attack on Americans. Then they admit that was not true. Trump cannot pretend to have a strategy for this war when he can't even decide on whether this is about regime change or not. His Secretary of Defense said in the same breath, this is not a regime change war, but the regime did change. His Secretary of State says the administration wasn't targeting Iran's supreme leader. But then Trump says, quote, I got him before he got me. And President Trump has also urged the Iranian people to rise up on the one hand, but suggested he's ready to negotiate with the government on the other. And Trump cannot pretend to have a strategy when he doesn't even care about the timeline. In one sentence, he said, the conflict is, and I quote, projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We will do whatever. Excuse me? We'll do whatever? That is not a plan. We'll do whatever is simply not good enough when American lives are at stake. And then in a post yesterday, Trump said, wars can be fought forever. Forever. The American people do not want forever wars, not again. And if you really want to understand just how callous and unserious this president is about the war he is starting, if you really want to understand just how little he has thought about the American service members, embassy personnel, and everyday Americans he is putting in harm's way, Trump ended his train of thought the other day by saying, quote, I don't get bored, there's nothing boring about this, before he actually got bored of talking about the war he started and moved right on to a topic he really does care about, his precious White House ballroom. You want to know where Trump's priorities lie? He has clearly put more thought and care and planning into this new White House ballroom than he has with the war with Iran. He'll talk about it any chance he gets. He has a timeline for the ballroom. He has a budget for that ballroom. He has an actual long-term vision for the ballroom, but not for the war he started from Palm Beach, Florida. Not for a war with American lives on the line. And that's because the problem is worse than Trump lacking any strategy for his war with Iran. President Trump also lacks any sort of concern for the weight of his decisions or any sort of appreciation of the sacrifice he is single-handedly forcing on our military families. Again, that's clear from his own words. What did he say to the tragic news that American service members were killed by Iran's response? Trump said, and I quote, there will likely be more. That's the way it is. That's the way it is? Or asked about boots on the ground, about putting our sons and daughters in the line of fire, he shrugs it off. He says, and I quote, I don't have the yips with respect to boots on the ground. That might be the most dismissive statement I have ever heard by a president making that about our service members. It is reckless, it is insulting, and it is up to us here in Congress to say enough. But we need Republicans to join us. You know, war is not some game. Our troops are not toy soldiers. Civilian casualties are not nothing. In Iran, hundreds have died, including more than 100 schoolgirls, children. They are blameless. Hospitals have been bombed. Shopping malls and homes have been hit. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff told the president this war could lead to significant American casualties. Already, as we know, 6 American service members have died. I don't care if the media grades Trump on a curve. It is not acceptable for a president to shrug his shoulders at this kind of death and destruction, and then provide no real reason for launching a brutal war of choice. What a disgrace to the office. What a disgrace to the role of commander-in-chief. The American people deserve so much better. If Trump will not rule out boots on the ground, then this Congress needs to. We have a constitutional responsibility when it comes to war, and I will never let us forget that. As I said in 2002, before voting against the Iraq war due to similar concerns, I understand the consequence of war. I don't shrink from them. My father was among the first to land in Okinawa as a GI. He was a Purple Heart recipient. Growing up, we always knew our country may need to project force to defend our freedoms. And I know we have a high obligation to the men and women of our armed forces who undertake the hard work of securing our freedom. In college, I volunteered during the Vietnam War at the Seattle Veterans Hospital. Most of the patients were young men my age at the time who had returned from the Vietnam traumatized. I carry that experience with me every day. It weighs heavily on my mind whenever we are faced with questions of war and peace. Putting our men and women in uniform in harm's way, That is an absolute last resort. We owe it to them to do our due diligence first. We must have good reasons based on solid intelligence. We must have clear goals and a plan to achieve them. We must have a serious plan that puts them in no more danger than necessary for no longer than necessary. We should not gamble American lives on incomplete plans, unclear objectives, and completely uncertain future. That was on my mind when I voted against the Iraq War in 2002, and it is my North Star today as well. But there is a big difference between what is happening right now and what happened back in 2002 before the Iraq War. Because you see, back in 2002, the administration came to Congress to make its case for war. The president went to the American people to make that case, and his Secretary of State spoke to the UN. I did not agree with his case. I voted against the war. But Congress, we, all of us, had briefings, we had public hearings, and we had serious conversations with the president and his leaders. Back in 2002, Congress debated, we deliberated, we voted. And this is critical. We did it before the Bush administration charged into what was predictably a painful war with no end in sight. But Trump doesn't want any of that. He doesn't want to make his case to America or our allies or Congress. He doesn't think he has to. Trump wants to bomb what he wants to do. He wants to kill who he wants to and start whatever war he wants. Consequences be damned. We saw it in Iran. We saw it in Venezuela. This is not a pattern that we can ignore. The founders of this country put Congress in charge of declaring war for a reason. This cannot be left to one man, certainly not a trigger-happy billionaire who is out of touch with reality. We, all of us, have to reassert our power as a co-equal branch of government, and we have to do what is best for our country and for our service members. America does not want any more wars. It does not want more Americans killed because of a reckless president that a Republican Congress refused to check. We know what America wants. All of us do know that. They want us to keep the promises that Trump broke. Lower prices, no new wars. I'll be voting against this war. I urge all of my colleagues to join me. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Mississippi is recognized.
Mr. President, this weekend our Commander-in-Chief made the most difficult decision a president can make. He ordered young American service members into action. My friends on the other side of the aisle are challenging the president's choice, and they're entitled to do so. I do find myself amazed from time to time with their rhetoric on the floor this morning and this afternoon. To hear them, apparently President Trump should have announced to the world that he was going to bomb the headquarters of the Ayatollah and destroy the leadership of Iran, who has attacked the United States and killed Americans for over 4 decades. Apparently, if this war lasts as long as 5 weeks, we should agree that we're going to fold our tents and come home and leave the job undone. Apparently, the fact that the ruthless drug lord dictator of Venezuela, President Maduro, is out of office is a bad thing. I disagree with that, and I wonder how that rhetoric is going to last through the decades. We'll see. I'll vote no on the pending resolution. President Trump decided to attack Iran. That decision was profound, deliberate, and correct. The president understands the weight of war. He was clear-eyed about the risk, and he was honest with the American people. From very early on Saturday morning, he said, we pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. Indeed, we must be mindful of the brave men and women deployed in this operation. And certainly, we grieve for the 6 American servicemen and women who've died in the fighting. I also grieve for the thousands of Americans that have died over the last 47 years at the hands of the brutal Islamist 9th century regime in Iran. I grieve for those. We care for the civilians caught in harm's way. And yes, we're doing our best to get them out. War is hell, which is why we prioritize deterrence and engage only when absolutely necessary. But when we enter into combat, we must do so deliberately, as this administration has done. My colleagues ask, why are we doing this? The president's given at least 4 goals explicitly. We are doing this to destroy Iran's missile capabilities and their ability to produce missiles. That's a good thing. We're doing this to annihilate the Iranian Navy, to ensure the regime can no longer arm, direct, and fund the terrorist activities that have gone on for over 4 decades, and to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. That's why we're doing it, and that's why I will vote against this resolution. The facts on the ground reflect a limited set of goals. We've taken out their air defenses and missile systems ahead of schedule. That's a good thing. Last week, Iran had 11 ships in the Gulf of Oman. Today, they have none. That's a good thing. We can expect to see airstrikes continue until our military objectives are achieved, a task that will take weeks, not days, but we ought to stay there long enough to get it done. I think the president's decision was correct. For decades, Mr. President, the Iranian regime has killed thousands of Americans and thousands of citizens of our friends and allies, and supported those who do. Too many American service members have lost brothers in arms to Iranian violence. Too many parents have lost sons and daughters to Iranian aggression. For decades, Iran has been the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. The Houthis, Hamas, other armed groups, the regime armed, funded, and trained terrorist groups across the region. These proxies have attacked and killed thousands of our people, thousands of our friends. Iran is a murderous partner of the overall axis of aggressors, which include China, Russia, and North Korea. They're all pals. They're all allies. The Ayatollah was a friend of the tyrants who lead those nations. He stood with Xi Jinping. He stood with the war criminal Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. Like them, the supreme leader violently suppressed his people. The regime was hell-bent on acquiring the world's worst weapons. If successful, they could have struck our friends, our bases, and in time, our homeland, Washington, D.C., America. President Trump, on the other hand, said from day one that he would keep Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And that's a major part of what this is about. He knew the Ayatollah had to be stopped, and he came to the correct conclusion that now was the time to do it. Already, Israel had devastated Iran's proxies Last summer, President Trump rained down fire on Iran's nuclear facilities. And in the past few months, untold numbers of Iranians stood up to the regime. The citizens of Iran stood up to this murderous regime in a massive show of opposition to the Ayatollah. Last Saturday morning, Iran had never been weaker. The time had come for the United States and for our ally, Israel, to strike. President Trump, the commander-in-chief, made that most difficult of decisions, and I think it will stand the test of time. This does not have to be a forever war. It's not an aimless exercise in the Middle East. This is a measured campaign to eliminate the Ayatollah's threat. It might take time to finish. We're certainly not going to put a time limit on it, but that does not make it endless. It is instead a waiting,
All right, going to do another test.
deliberate,
Just let me know
and
if you can
correct
hear me in a minute,
decision
because I know it takes a
made
delay.
to protect the United States of America. And I shall vote no on the resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, for those of you that are watching, I appreciate it. We're going to kind of just
California.
check this out, see what it's all about.
Mr. President, we are at war once again. George W. Bush had his Iraq war, and Donald Trump now has his Iran war. Make no mistake, with the massive deployment of American military forces, with the massive amounts of ordnance that are being used, with the tragic loss of 6 lives, 6 service members of the United States, we are at war. We were at war having had no national debate over whether we should enter into war.
Oh,
We were at war
God, look
having
at
had
who's
no
talking now.
authorization by Congress, a power explicitly given by our founders to the Congress to declare war. The founders understood that the executive branch acting alone would grow too fond of war. We are seeing that fear materialize before our eyes with a president that now has used military force repeatedly against different countries for different rationales. Why should we care whether there's a vote in Congress on war? Why should we care whether there's a debate in the country over war? We should care because if we
You guys don't be
invest the
afraid to
sole
chat if you want
power
to. I'm pretty
to
sure
make war, and
somebody's
the
going to
President of the
watch
United
with this
States, the
dude
sole
talking and have
decision
something
to bring a country into
pretty funny
war
to
with
say.
the President of the United States,
I
there
just
is
have to
no
get used to
check
this
on
stream
the use
delay.
of that
Haven't
authority.
tried this
There is no
before.
check on the abuse of that authority. There is no meaningful way to constrain a president from getting involved in adventurism around the world that causes our country an enormous price to pay in lives lost, in treasure lost. Now, you might say, well, what about these other uses of military force by others in the past? Well, of course, with the Iraq War, there was a vote on authorization. With
Do
the
I
Afghanistan
sound
War,
okay,
there
though,
was a
on it?
vote on authorization. But what about these other uses? Doesn't a president have a right to use force to defend the country from imminent attack? And the answer is yes. If there's an imminent threat of attack, the president has the authority. But if it goes beyond anything imminent, he must come to Congress for an authorization. So what was the imminent threat here? Well, the short answer is there was none. But the administration has given several shifting rationales, several incompatible arguments with why they believe there was an imminent threat. Let's look at Secretary Rubio last week said that the Iranians were headed in the pathway
Well,
to
anybody
one
takes this
day
guy serious.
being able to
How
develop
can you even
weapons that could
speak of an
reach the
imminent
continent of the
threat when it
United
comes to
States.
Iran?
Well, a threat to reach
Iran just being
the United
Iran
States one day
is an
in the
imminent
future
threat.
is the very antithesis of imminent. Donald Trump said on Monday the regime had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful
you.
America. By soon, the best estimates are that would take years. That is certainly not imminent. Secretary Rubio on Monday had this to say: there was absolutely there absolutely was an imminent threat. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action, he said. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces, and we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer high casualties. We knew that if Iran was attacked even by someone else, they would immediately come after us, and we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded. So on Monday, Rubio says, because Israel was going to attack, we had to preemptively attack. But on Tuesday, the president contradicted his own Secretary of State and said, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, meaning the Iranians. It was my opinion that they, meaning Iran, were going to attack first. They were going to attack if we didn't do it. If anything, the president said, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready. So the president says, no, the imminence didn't come from Iran. From Israel. He may have, in fact, forced Israel's hand. And on Tuesday, Hegseth took sides with the president, and not Marco Rubio, saying that Trump's explanation was 100% correct.
Somebody tell me how this guy actually got
the imminent threat
elected
didn't come from anything that Israel
in California
was planning to do. It
again.
Didn't come from
This
missiles
just
that could hit
nuts.
the United States that were years away. What was the other imminent rationale that the administration used? Well, on February 21st, Stephen Witkoff said Iran is, quote, probably a week away from having industrial-grade bomb-making material. Of course, that contradicts what the president said last June with the first Iran war, in which he said and reiterated just this past Saturday that, quote, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program. Well, either we obliterated it or we didn't. And if we obliterated it, it's obviously not an imminent threat. On Monday, Secretary Hegseth told reporters at the Pentagon that the Islamic Republic was building sophisticated missiles and other conventional weapons to shield its plans for a nuclear bomb. Iran had a conventional gun to our head, he said, as they tried to lie their way to a nuclear bomb. Again, no evidence that Iran was on the cusp of a missile that could hit the United States. No evidence that Iran was building the mechanism of a bomb. No evidence of imminence. What about regime change? Is that somehow a rationale for war at all, let alone war without an authorization by the American people in Congress? Donald Trump in 2016 had this to say about regime change. He said, we must abandon the failed policy of nation building and regime change. Even earlier in 2025, Donald Trump said, regime change takes chaos, and ideally we don't want to see so much chaos. But on Saturday, Donald Trump said, when we are finished, take over your government, he said to the Iranian people. It will be yours to take. Take back your country. On Monday, Secretary Rubio said, we would love to see this regime being replaced. On Tuesday, Donald Trump said someone from within the Iranian regime might be the best choice to take over. But regime change is not an argument that we face an imminent threat. And finally, the last rationale of the administration is, on Saturday, the president posted on Truth Social that, quote, Iran tried to interfere in 2020, 2024 elections to stop Trump and now faces renewed war with the United States. On Sunday, he said and cited Iran's effort to assassinate him as a key factor in ordering the operation that killed Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Quote, I got him before he got me, Trump told ABC News. I got him first. So this was, I guess, the final rationale. Is he one to get the Iranians before they got him?
Well, no shit, Sherlock.
So here we are.
Would you rather him have just sat here until maybe they did get him?
None of them amounting to imminence. None of them posing a direct and imminent threat to the United States. And now we're at war again, where we have tragically lost the lives of American service members, where we are sinking billions and billions of dollars again into a foreign war, without time constraint, without plan. This comes at a great cost to American people, most particularly to our military families, but we are about to get a request for a supplemental appropriation, probably in the tens of billions of dollars, to backfill all the munitions we're using today. That's tens of billions of dollars that will not go into your health care. That's tens of billions of dollars that will not go to reducing the cost of your housing or your groceries. That's tens of billions of dollars that will not go into investing in America. That's tens of billions of dollars that we are literally blowing up over Iran when we face no imminent threat. Folks, we have already essentially walked away from our most important power, and that is the congressional power of the purse. The President rescinds funds, he impounds funds, and we put up no murmur of protest. We have walked away from that most important power in the Constitution that the founders gave us. The other most important power they gave us was the power to declare war. There is no argument that this is anything less than war. And this resolution is about stopping that war, but it is also about reasserting Congress's vital role as a check on the executive and the abuse of the authority to bring a nation to war. This is about whether the American people, through their elected representatives, will have a say when their sons and daughters are put in harm's way, when the resources of this country are diverted away from their communities and towards the building of bombs and weapons and engagement in another potentially endless foreign war. I thank Senator Kaine for this resolution. I'm proud to work with you on this, Senator, and I urge all my colleagues to support it. And I yield back.
It's always the boring part, the procedural part where they cut the mics and no one's talking. Who else is next? Schumer? Did he already speak? I don't know. Hakeem, maybe? I have no idea.
President.
Senator from Idaho.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise today to oppose the resolution that my Democrat friends have brought here to the floor. It is very short, only a few pages long, but there's the operative part of it is only 18 words. It's on page 3, and it says, Congress hereby directs the President to remove the United States Armed Forces from hostilities within or against Iran. Real simple. They're trying to stop, they're telling the President he must stop and remove our troops from the conflict that we're currently involved in. It's important to remember what we're doing here and what the Democrats are trying to do here. I'm going to talk in two different parts. One is the War Powers Act and the Constitution. We've all sat through hundreds of hours of argument on this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with it. The third part is how we got here, where we are, and where we're going. A little more interesting, I think. In any event, as far as the War Powers Act, it was enacted in 1973 by Congress. It was designed to try to cut into the constitutional powers of the President under Article 2 of the Constitution. Every single president, every one of them since then, Democrat and Republican, has refused to accept as constitutional the War Powers Act. They have always said that it infringes on the President's Article 2 constitutional authorities to defend the President, to defend the American people, and to complete the oath they've taken to defend the country. So, 45 of the last 47 presidents, which is all we've had, have ordered kinetic acts, just like President Trump has done, without going to Congress. This isn't new. This has happened 45 in the last 47 presidencies. The Constitution, Article 2, clearly gives the President not only the right, but indeed the duty, as does his oath, to protect the United States. Having said all this, the claim is that what the president did is illegal. Well, if that's what they really believe over here, then what are we doing here? All we're doing is yakking here. What they should do is go across the street to the court and file suit if it's illegal to stop it. They sue him 3 times every day before breakfast. What difference does one more lawsuit make? That's what they should do. That's the remedy if they think it's illegal.
You know,
Now,
that does make
more
sense.
interesting.
Why are they doing
Three
it
parts of
here?
this.
Why are they bringing this up?
How do
Why
we
don't
get
they just
here?
go to court and get a stop
Where
order?
are we in this moment, and where do we go from
Because
here?
they can't.
Well, 47 years ago, this started. What you had was the Iranians take over our embassy in Iran, and they illegally held and kidnapped and restrained our diplomats there, a number of them, for 444 days. At that point in time, 47 years ago, there were 2 sides. There were, on one side were us, the United States and Israel, and on the other side was Iran and all other actors in the region, the Arab countries that surround them. That was the difference from where things were then as where they are today. What's happened over the last 47 years is the Arab countries have gotten tired of this. They're sick and tired of this. And so where are we today? We are at the point today where you have only one bad apple left in the region, and that's Iran. And of course, their proxies, the 3 H's, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, all of whom are actually just part of Iran. When Iran is defeated, and they will be here, the 3 H's are gone too. Hezbollah has been badly decimated already. The other 2, Hamas has been almost decimated completely, and Houthis are still around, but all 3 of those are going to be gone when indeed Iran is defeated, which it will be here before very long. So over this 47 years, what Iran has done, while the Arab countries have moved away, while they have moved to wanting peace and security in the region, they have continued to murder thousands of Americans. They have killed thousands of Americans. I grabbed the list and was going to bring it out here. It would take me about a half an hour to read all of the sins that the Iranians have committed over these 47 years. So we're left in a very, very different place today. The Arab countries want nothing left to do with this, and we're going to deal with a different Middle East than what we have. Today, I am more optimistic than I have ever been about the Middle East. I really believe that when we end this and the Iranian regime is brought down, we are going to have a Middle East that is going to be very peaceful, and it's going to be a different Middle East as we go forward. The people will look back at this and say, when did this happen? I think the turning point was the Abraham Accords, but in addition to that, it has happened in other respects also. You say, well, what evidence do you have of that? You know, during the war, the Hamas war between Israel and Hamas, the Iranians decided one day to launch 300 missiles against Iran, and they did that. None of those landed, none of those did any damage because of the overhead defense they have, but also you had Israeli pilots, U.S. pilots, British pilots, and French pilots flying to protect Israel and take out these missiles. That's not the big news. On that same night, the big news is 2 Arab countries were also flying. Jordan and the Saudis were flying to protect Israel from the onslaught of missiles from Iran. That is clear evidence that the Middle East has changed. It is a different place today, and it's continuing to be a better place. Since this most recent war broke out, the Arab countries have decided to side with us and side against Iran. They're all by themselves.
Some comments.
That's where
Have
we
some
are at this
conversation
moment.
about it.
Their navy's at the bottom of the sea.
I'll be honest, this guy's
Air
a
Force is
Republican, I
non-existent.
believe. He's on our side,
A
but
YAK-130
I'll
took
be
off
honest, I don't even know-
in
I
Iran.
don't know
It
who this
lasted
guy
just
is.
moments in the air before it was taken out by one of our F-35s. They're done. They're through. Their missiles and their drone stockpiles are dwindling and dwindling badly. The strikes are becoming less and less that they're able to put out there. And this is going to end, and it's going to end rapidly. This is not a forever war, indeed not even close to it. This is going to end very quickly. The commander-in-chief ordered this attack because of the increase in the manufacturing of long and medium-range missiles, and after trying to restart the nuclear program that was decimated in the 12-day war. And all this time they had us sitting at the table, dragging out and yakking away at negotiations that were going absolutely nowhere. For that reason, he did what he did, and that is ordered our brave young men and women to do what they're doing today. The message to the regime I would have today for them is no one's coming to help. I said that before in the 12-year war. I was right. Today, the same is true. China's not coming. Russia's not coming. North Korea's not coming. Cuba's not coming. Venezuela's not coming. They are not coming to help you, Iran. No one is coming. But there is one entity left that is trying to help you, Iran regime. Only one on this planet. And that's my friends over here.
I don't know why
they have brought this, and you heard the language I said, they're trying to use the process, the process of the United States Senate to stop our commander-in-chief to doing what he has set out to do. No other entity on the planet is attempting to help you, Iran. Nobody, except one. And that one is right here. But we're going to end that now. It ends now. It ends here in a few moments when we have this vote. To our brave men and women, I say, you're fighting to accomplish the task and the objectives that the President, our Commander-in-Chief, has given you. We are proud of you. We are about to help you. Know this, we have your back. We are about to defeat here on this floor the last entity that is trying to stop you from doing the job that the President of the United States has given you. Bless you for what you're doing, and bless the United States of America.
Well, I guess when they decide or actually get to the vote, we're going to get to see
Mr. President,
who believes that we should be doing this with Iran or not. I firmly believe that what we did is justified. And
Mr. President, I rise
feel
today,
like we need to do that. Oh, my Lord.
As the
M.
penultimate
Waltz.
speaker before we have a vote on the War Powers Resolution, the bipartisan resolution I have filed with Senators Paul, Schiff, and Schumer. I rise today in support of our troops who don't deserve to be sent into war unless this Congress votes that there should be such a war. I pray for the families who are learning that their loved ones will not come home. I pray for the families whose children or spouses are deployed overseas, unable to sleep with worry about them. Mr. President, I've paid attention over the course of the last 13 months as this president has again and again and again used our troops to carry out military action without coming to Congress. I've paid attention to the reasons that my colleagues are giving who want to give the president an easy pass around the Constitution. When we had a vote last summer about the attack on Iran at the end of the Israeli 12-day war, by the time the vote had been called up, that bombing mission was in the rearview mirror, and so my colleague from Idaho said, there's no hostilities. The hostilities are over.
Right,
So
this
you
guy
should
lost
vote
all
against the
credibility with
resolution
me
on that
for
ground.
integrity and Constitution when his state
When we called up an effort
billions of dollars in fraud.
to constrain the president from illegally striking boats in international waters, the legal rationale asserted by my colleagues and the White House to vote down a war powers resolution and end run the Constitution was these are
boats they're talking
pinprick
about.
strikes
Sure.
that don't
just
rise
fishing boats, just
to the level of
speed
war.
boats
Only
with six
if it's war
400
must the
horsepower
White House
motors
come
attached.
to Congress.
Just your average everyday fishing boat. Nothing to it.
When I brought forward a resolution a month or so ago to say no war in Venezuela without a vote of Congress, again, my colleague from Idaho said, this isn't war, it's over. It was one and done. There are no troops left in Venezuela. One, reason after the next to give the president an easy pass lane around the Constitution. Well, today we're dealing with something different. You can't stand up and say this is a pinprick that doesn't lead to the level that would be characterized as war. You can't stand up and say this is one and done and no troops are engaged in hostilities against Iran. Members of the Senate, this is war. The President of the United States has called it a war against Iran. The head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane, has called it a war against Iran. Secretary Rubio, our Secretary of State, has called it a war against Iran. All of the excuses that you've advanced to give the president an easy pass around the Constitution and suggest he needn't come to Congress all evaporate because this is a war. It's a war. Many of my colleagues know that during the classified briefing yesterday, I can't reveal information given to me, but I can say what I said. And I challenged the body, including the administration witnesses, your escalating pattern of military action without seeking our approval convinces me that you believe you never need to come to Congress to wage war against anyone anywhere. I hoped that someone might refute my point and tell me I'm wrong, and they would come to Congress, but no one did. And so here we are in a war that has cost American lives, that is leading to chaos throughout the region, that threatens to go bigger and bigger and bigger.
I don't think that is Tim Walz.
And I'm asking the Senate to do what the framers of the Constitution said we should do, debate and vote about matters of war. What are the arguments now that the other side has made to suggest we should vote down this resolution? First, they say that Iran are bad actors. On that, we would agree. If you put in a resolution, Iran has carried out a lot of bad actions, you get 100-0 vote in this body on that resolution. But being a bad actor is not an easy pass around the Constitution. It does not allow us to take our sons and daughters into war and risk their lives without a debate and vote. That is not a sufficient rationale. And the other rationale, and you just heard my colleague make it, was that the effort to bring a war powers resolution, a bipartisan resolution before this body, is somehow partisan. It's this side trying to come to the aid of the regime. There's nothing partisan about the Constitution. There's nothing partisan about caring for our kids and wanting to have a debate before they get sent into harm's way to risk their lives. This is not a partisan issue on our side. We are basically asking a question of the entire Senate, indeed, of the entire nation.
You would have
we learned
100-0 vote. Well,
from 25 years of war in the Middle East?
Isn't that kind of the whole point of why we did what we did?
14,000 American troops and contractors killed in Iran and Afghanistan. More than 65,000 American troops and contractors injured in these wars. These nearly 80,000 people were from every walk of life, every state and territory, every race, every age, every rank, every religion, every gender. They only had two things in common. A, they had a patriotic desire to serve their country, and B, their futures were dramatically affected, in some instances eliminated, because of 25 years of war in the Middle East. Someone suggested yesterday that this resolution was our effort to gum up the work of the... What is the work of the Senate? What is the work of the Senate if it's not to discuss the circumstances under which we should send our kids into war? In addition to the lives lost of American troops and contractors and those injured, hundreds of thousands of civilian deaths, innocent civilian deaths in Iran and Afghanistan. More than $8 trillion spent that could have been spent on American health care, on American housing, on American education, spent on the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. And what did we get for it? What did we get for it? If people think 25 years of war in the Middle East was a good thing or produced something, I hope they would come to the floor and tell us what we gained from it. This effort to force a vote is not about partisanship, it's about the Constitution, but even more importantly, it's about the lives of our troops and the question of what, in fact, we got from 25 years of war in the Middle East, and whether we should continue that, quote, forever war. The president tweeted out the phrase forever war today when he talked about the munitions that we have. We don't need illegal wars. We don't need forever wars. We don't need more wars in the Middle East. Let me say this and conclude and yield to our Democratic leader. I've said this to my colleagues before. I came to this body in 2013 with the experience of being a governor and watched my Virginians repeatedly deployed, time after time after time, active duty Guard, Reserve, DOD civilians, Virginia National Guard, into the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I went to the deployments, and I went to the homecomings, and I went to the wakes, and I went to the funerals. And I signed the condolence letters that all governors sign when they get the bad news that one of their own has lost their lives in war. And when I came to this body in 2013, I said that I would do anything I could in my power to stop any president, Democrat or Republican, from waging war without coming to Congress. And I would especially do anything I could to stop an unwise, unnecessary war that puts our troops' lives at risk for no legitimate reason. Colleagues who've been with me since 2013 know that I've upheld that standard against presidents of both parties. When President Obama wanted to use military action in Syria to punish the Syrian regime for using chemical weapons against its own citizens, even though I was his friend, I stood up and said, you cannot do that without a vote of Congress. Presidents can defend against incoming attack, protect against Houthis firing at our ships in the Red Sea. Presidents can act when there is a pre-existing congressional authorization to go after terrorists who Congress voted that presidents should be able to act against. But in this instance, there is no congressional authorization on the books that would authorize this military action. And as my colleagues have amply demonstrated, the administration, in their shifting set of rationales, and even in a classified setting, could produce no evidence, none, that the U.S. was under an imminent threat of attack from Iran. It's easy to try to dismiss this by saying, oh, it's about partisanship. And those who would say that say it so they don't have to grapple, I believe, with their own sense of unease about what we are starting on right now.
I wonder what he would be saying
Perhaps
right now
this war
if
will be
let's
over
say this
in a few
went
weeks
through
or a
and
few
we
months.
had to
We pray
pull
that it
out
will be.
and Iran went back
But
the way
that's
it
what
was.
we thought about the war in Iraq.
And then 6 months from now,
when
Iran
we
actually attacked
claimed
somehow
that the mission was
inside
accomplished.
the
When we
U.S.
claimed that we were
I wonder then if he would
met
be
as
having the
liberators, and
same
yet
tone,
years and years
or
and
would he
years
just
later,
change his mind because now it would be something he
troops
thinks
from
he
all of
should
our
say.
states were still
I
coming
don't believe
home
any of these guys
deeply
on this side
wounded and
sometimes.
affected, both physically and in their mental health from those wars, from seeing what happened to them and their friends. Some never came home. If there's one thing we do that we have to get right, it's this. It's this. We can't afford to hide under a desk and let any president, Democrat or Republican, send our best and brightest, our own kids, into war to risk their lives unless we have debated it, we have determined it's in the national interest, we have voted and thereby put our signature and our thumbprint on the notion that it's worth sending our best and brightest to risk their lives. I urge my colleagues, as this is escalating from pinprick strikes to one-off operations, now into full war, even called war by the president and his chief advisors, let's stand up and do what the Constitution requires us to do. I urge a yes vote on my resolution, and I yield the floor.
Democrat Minority Leader.
First, let me thank my friend from Virginia for his stellar leadership on this issue, not just this year, but through the last decade. And he is an inspiration, I think, to all of us. Thank you. I also want to thank Senator Schiff and Paul for joining me and Senator Kaine in this important resolution. Now, Mr. President, today, senators face a choice. Stand with the American people who are tired of war in the Middle East, or side with Donald Trump, who bumbles America into another war most Americans fiercely oppose.
this guy wake up like in a
Voting on
snow
matters
globe or
of war
something? You
is one
do
of the most
realize this
solemn
is a
votes a
70,
senator
80,
can
20
take.
issue.
This
that
is
the
about
American people
whether or
believe
not
Iran
senators are ready to
needed to be
send
taken care of.
your sons and your daughters into harm's way. If there was ever a moment for Senate Republicans to take a stand, it's now. The last thing the American people want or need is another war in the Middle East. But if you listen to Secretary Pete Hegseth's press conference this morning, one thing is crystal clear. America is at war with no plan, no strategy. In his own words, Hegseth said, quote, "We are just getting started." Hegseth said, "We are accelerating, not decelerating." And in the wake of 6 brave Americans who died in uniform, Trump simply says, "There will likely be more. That's the way it is." This, my colleagues, is madness. Americans spent the last 2 decades fighting and dying in the Middle East. Parents watched their kids shipped off to foreign lands. So many lives lost, so many billions wasted, so much suffering and anguish that scarred an entire generation. Why is Donald Trump hell-bent on making history repeat itself? Why is he plunging America headfirst into a war that Americans do not want and which he cannot even explain?
And then see if this is going to be
Enough is
prolonged.
enough. The American people deserve a say, and that is what our resolution is about. We must act to stop Trump's belligerence. The American people will be watching how senators vote. History will judge this chamber for how we act. To my colleagues, all of my colleagues, it is time to make a stand. We must stop another war in the Middle East. Support our resolution. Yield the floor.
Senator from Virginia.
Section 601B of the International Security Assistance and Arms Control Act, I move to discharge the Committee on Foreign Relations from further consideration of S.J. Res. 104 to direct the removal of United States Armed Forces from hostilities within or against the Islamic Republic of Iran that have not been authorized by Congress.
The clerk will report.
Senator from Virginia, Mr. Kane, moves to discharge S.J. Res. 104 to direct the removal of United States Armed Forces from hostilities within or against the Islamic Republic of Iran that have not been authorized by Congress from the Committee on Foreign Relations.
Mr. President.
Senator from Virginia.
I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. There is. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks. Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Banks. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Blunt Rochester. Mr. Booker. Mr. Bozeman.
Always funny how long it takes for this to happen. Like they all just walk off or they're not there. They've got to come back. It's like, what's the point of the aye or the nay if you weren't even in the room?
Thank you.
I don't get it sometimes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Mrs. Britt. Mr. Budd. Ms. Cantwell. Mrs.
Curious
Capito.
about the young
Mr. Cassidy.
folks all in like the black
Ms.
outfits
Collins.
down there
Mr.
towards the bottom of the
Coons.
screen. I wonder if those are like interns.
Mr. Cornyn. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kramer. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Curtis. Mr. Daines. Ms. Duckworth. Mr. Durbin. Ms. Ernst. Mr. Fetterman. Mrs. Fisher. Mr.
There's
Gallego.
nobody in there.
Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Haggerty. Ms. Hassan. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Hickenlooper. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Husted.
You know, if
Mrs.
most of the
Height
people aren't even
Smith.
present. What's the point?
Mr. Johnson. Mr. Justice. Mr. Kane. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kim. Mr. King. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Langford. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lujan. Ms. Lummis. Mr. Markey. Mr. Marshall. Mr. McConnell. Mr. McCormick. Mr. Merkley. Mrs. Moody. Mr. Moran. Mr. Marino. Mr. Mullen. Ms. Murkowski.
All those kids
Mr.
sitting
Murphy.
around there look so bored.
Mrs. Murray. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Paul. Mr. Peters. Mr. Reed. Mr. Ricketts. Mr. Risch. Ms. Rosen. Mr. Rounds. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Schatz. Mr. Schiff. Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Scott of Florida. Mr. Scott of South Carolina. Mrs. Shaheen. Mr. Sheehy. Ms. Slapkin. Ms. Smith. Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Thune. Mr.
I feel like the
Tillis.
Republicans aren't present at the moment
Mr.
because they
Tuberville.
wanted to go to a vote.
Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Warner.
I think it'd be
Mr.
good to get on
Warnock.
record to see who
Ms.
supports
Warren.
taking out
Mr.
the
Welch.
#1 sponsored terrorist country
Mr.
in the world,
Whitehouse.
Iran, and
Mr.
who
Wicker.
believes that we should have just waited until
Wyden.
they somehow attacked us
Mr.
or
Young.
killed more of our soldiers before we acted. It'll be curious.
Senators voting in the affirmative. Also Brooks, Baldwin, Bennett, Blumenthal, Blunt Rochester, Booker, Cantwell, Cortez Masto, Duckworth, Durbin, Gillibrand, Hassan, Heinrich, Hickenlooper, Kane, Kelly, Kim, King, Klobuchar, Lujan, Markey, Merkley, Murray, Padilla, Peters, Reed, Rosen, Sanders, Schatz, Schiff, Schumer, Slotkin, Smith, Van Hollen, Warner, Warnock, Warren, Welch, Whitehouse, and Wyden. Mr. Langford. Senators voting. Mr. Coons, aye. Senators voting in the negative. Barrasso, Blackburn, Cassidy, Kramer, Crapo, Fetterman, Graham, Grassley, Haggerty, Hawley, Justice, Langford, Marshall, McCormick, Risch, Rounds, Schmidt, Scott of Florida, Tillis, and Tuberville.
All right, so apparently this was the actual vote. I guess they just have one representative that walks in if there's multiple ones that are going to be voting no. I think that's what the guy was that walked in and she read some names or asked and he did the thumbs down. We shall see. Hopefully they wrap this up and we can go ahead and end this stream. I was just curious about the process for this part. I feel like they should have to leave the mics on so we could hear what was being said at all times. That would be interesting. But crickets.
Mr. Kennedy, no.
All right, so they're just going out to gather the votes for the people that are not present at the moment.
Ms. Hirono. Ms. Hirono. Aye. Mr. Sheehy. No.
How many more are left? Still want to know what these young folks or kids are doing as they move up, and it's like one will get called and then they all shift and move towards the front. Anybody watches this later and knows what they're doing, that just leave a comment on the video. Let me know. I'm kind of curious.
Ms. Lummis, no.
Finally. How many more?
Mr. Young, no.
Wow, it's like torture watching one of these for the first time all the way through for the vote.
Mrs. Moody, no. Mr. Gallego, aye. Mr. Mullen, no.
They could at least put a counter up on the screen so we would have an idea how many have not voted yet. So we wouldn't just have to sit here and try not to pass out while we're waiting.
Mr. Scott of South Carolina, no. Mr. Ossoff, aye. Mr. Moran, no.
Where were they all at?
Ms. Murkowski, no. Mr. Banks, no.
If anybody's still sticking with me, I don't see the viewer count on here, but if you are, appreciate it. I'm going to leave it as is, and we're just going to follow it, even though if it's boring, just in case anyone wants to watch this
Mrs.
later.
Fisher, no.
Start to finish. Can you imagine being in school and then having to watch one of these for like a history class or something and trying to keep people awake?
Ms. Ernst, no.
Again, why are these people coming in sporadically off and on? What else are they doing? Where are they at when there's a vote? I wonder why they don't let them like play music or something. Have something going on while they're waiting on the votes.
Mr. Johnson, no. Mrs. Capito.
Thank you, Mr.
No.
Jones. Finally. Who's left? I should start reading out who's not voted yet.
Ms. Collins, no. Mr. Ricketts, no. Mr. Daines, no.
I gotta be getting close to the end. At least I hope. Oh, you know, you always see those people asleep in Congress or in the Senate during hearings or during votes. I can fully understand why at this moment.
Mr. Murphy? Aye. Mr. Curtis? No. Mr. Paul? Aye.
There's one of the rhinos right there, Mr. Paul. Republican voting aye.
Mr. Lee? No. Mrs. Hyde-Smith? No. Mr. Cotton? No. Mr. Sullivan? No. Mr. Budd? No. Mr. Bozeman? No. Mr. Hoven? No. Mrs. Shaheen? Aye. Mr. Husted, no. Mr. Marino, no. Mr. McConnell, no. Mrs. Britt, no. Mr. Wicker? No. Mr. Thune? No. Mr. Cruz? No.
I know it's boring, guys, but I want to wait until they actually get the official vote done, and I'm going to let them play that and see if there's anybody that wants to speak after that, and then we will wrap this up. But I know this video kind of seems boring. We've been waiting forever now for what seems like 2 additional votes to finalize it. But once that's done, they'll end the process, and I just want to make sure that I cover this all the way to the end. So thank you for sticking with me if you're still in here. I'll be back when they finally start talking again. I do agree with you there, Roland. But honestly, that can go either way, whether you fall on the
Mr.
left
Cornyn,
or you
Mr.
fall on the
Cornyn.
right. Holy crap. Somebody
No.
just said something. We finally got one more vote. I think we got one outstanding to go, and then they can finalize this. You are curious, though, Roland. So far, there's only been 2 deflections, as you would call it, depending on what side you choose. Fetterman.
The yeas are 47, the nays are 53. The motion to discharge is not approved.
All right, so they finally, we are done. 47-53. So we are not going to be having this resolution to stop what's going on right now in Iran. So whichever side you do fall on, there you have it. And there we go. But like I was saying before I end this, there were only 2 deflections on either side, depending on which way you sit. You have Fetterman of the Democrats, who voted with the Republicans in the yay category. And then you had a Republican, I think it's Ron Paul, who voted along with the Democrat side against the Republican Party. So that's the final vote tally, guys. Thank you for sticking with me. I know it was boring. I do appreciate those that did stick with me. Let me fix that border. It just looks bad. There we go. So thank you again, and we will catch you on the next stream or catch you in the next video. Either way, till next time. Later, guys.